Observe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 38 of the Observe and Rapport show. I'm Kyle Brennan, joined as ever with my beautiful co-host, Keith Sullivan. Keith, how are we doing today?
Tan,
you do look nice and tan. You got a comedy mothership shirt.
Yeah, and it's funny because people, I've been called Walmart Joe Rogan, and now
you might as well lean into it.
I'm leaning in.
Start wearing some like Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay t-shirts.
Yeah, I'll get arm tats. I'll get 2 sleeves. I'll get, what's that illness he has? Alopecia.
Does he have that?
On his hands. His hands are like completely white.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's true. He has alopecia.
Interesting.
Which, by the way, Michael Jackson.
Did you see the disguises
of Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, is that? Oh, I thought that's what you were going to talk about.
I'm going with the alopecia thing. Like when we were kids, it was like common knowledge that he bleaches his skin or something, and like that's so not true. Like he has alopecia. So what would happen is...
I thought it was both. He had alopecia and also bleached his skin to like hide the alopecia.
So he wouldn't bleach it.
Or makeup.
He would wear makeup to make it less obvious.
Yeah.
But like when your skin is white, mostly, you can't just make it all black. You have to like blend it in with white.
Yeah.
And he's like, I remember him being like, he was in an interview and he's like, that is so fucking ridiculous. Like I am not trying to be white. I love being black. I was in the Jackson fucking 5. What are you talking about? Like, and I remember I was watching it like, I can't believe what they did to that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I know he slept with kids and did things bad, but like they really ruined his life. Like they really, I guess when you're the most popular person in the world,
yeah,
it's hard.
Well, I thought what you were going to bring up was I just saw a post of all of his like disguises.
I never saw that.
I feel like I maybe saw it like 20 years ago, but it totally left my mind. Then I saw this and it had like, you swipe through and it was all his disguises when he went out in public. Like if he was like in airport security, and they literally put like Hollywood makeup, like a new nose, because his nose is like his most like defining characteristic. If he was wearing like a hat and sunglasses, you'd kind of notice that chin and that nose.
Oh, absolutely.
But so they literally like would make him kind of like give him like jowls, like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, and like a nose.
Well, speaking of being famous and stuff, like I know there's a story Elvis used to rent out like Disney World itself for like the day when he would go because he didn't want to be bothered. But this Jeff Bezos thing with the wedding, everyone's like upset that he got married or whatever and like spent $50 million and whatever. But by the way, I got to tell you, I don't give a shit because the next time you need anything, it's going to be on your doorstep the next day or the same day.
Yeah.
Like, have fun.
Yeah.
You deserve it, bud. But do you ever wonder, like, when rich people get married or they have a party or like it's a birthday party, like all these other celebrities show up, like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Are they friends?
Do they know Jeff Bezos? Or do they just...
They can't.
No.
Not
like
that many people.
And I guess... But imagine going...
Like, does Jeff Bezos, the CEO, or he's not the CEO anymore, but the founder of Amazon, does he hang out with Kim Kardashian and Tom Brady and like...
And Sydney Sweeney? Like, no. So why do they go? And what do they do when they're there? Like, they don't know anybody. Like, I know that they're rich and famous and they know of the person, but there's nothing to talk about.
Well, you got to figure if they're renting Venice, they're probably able to pay out some publicity fees to people if they need to.
Maybe I think it's a business decision, right? Like, it's an opportunity to get money to wear this dress or a photo op. Or
even like, imagine if you were a super famous athlete or a musician or whatever, and you got invited to Jeff Bezos. Yes, there'd be a part of me as like a normal citizen that'd be like, oh, that'd be sick. But if I was a celebrity, I'd be like, why do I need to do that?
Exactly. I don't know the guy. Yeah. And I don't know anyone who's going. I mean, I know who they are. What gift
do you get Jeff Bezos?
Well, that's the thing. You can't get him anything because, I mean, he has everything. He rented a city.
What do you get?
You don't get him. So like, it's such an interesting.
I guess maybe that's why you go. You don't need to bring a gift.
You just show up.
You get paid for. You get a free trip to Venice, and that's it.
Like, I'm sure Jeff Bezos still has family and friends, right? So like, were they there, or was it just like, oh, just no, like everyone is famous and rich?
Yeah, imagine you're like Jeff Bezos' nephew, and you're just like sitting at a table with Sydney Sweeney,
and you're like,
so how do you know Jeff?
Right?
How do you know my uncle?
She's like, I don't even know why I'm here, honestly. My publicist called me and said I have to go to the Jeff Bezos' wedding. I
was in a shitty movie that's on Prime Video, and that's about it.
Speaking of parties, did you see Diddy is like he's not even getting like acquitted for all the like all the really big stuff. Like my wife sent me a link. It was like he's like, yeah, you trafficked, but you didn't like traffic. Like it's like that kind of thing. Like it's like not a big deal whatever he did there.
He's got a really good lawyer.
And there were people outside the courthourse who were his fans and supporters that were like squirting baby oil all over the street.
That's the thing. Like, does he still have fans?
Yes.
Because I feel like with other famous artists and musicians who have had scandals like this, they were talented enough where people were like willing to look the other way a little bit.
But what did he really?
Did he?
A couple of songs.
Yeah.
Just, he did the Sting thing.
Would the world be different if Diddy didn't exist?
No, I mean, you and I do love that Godzilla song from
a good
the
song.
one with
Kashmir.
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
That's the Kashmir loop.
Yeah. He says it like 17 times.
But it's great. The drums are great. I
Yeah.
believe Aaron Spears is playing the drums on that.
I mean, the most valuable thing he ever did was just bring us Biggie. That's about it.
Yeah. And it's funny, if you remember, in Get Him to the Greek, he played like himself.
Yeah.
And he was like, there's a scene in the movie where he says to this girl, Destiny, he says, "You're going to go upstairs and have sex with Aaron." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And like, I'm like, but back in 2011, that was funny. Now that's not funny.
Wow.
Times change.
Yeah.
So, and they were basically at a freak off in that scene.
Yeah.
And then,
was that the Stroke the Furry Wall scene?
That was Stroke the Furry Wall and the Smoke a Jeffrey and all that. Russell Brand back in those days was fantastic. Now he's like a priest now.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like so
I
crazy.
love seeing these guys who are like, and girls too.
Yeah.
Who are like total, like just whores. And
Yeah.
like,
He
were
admits
just,
it,
like,
though.
Total like party scumbags. And then now they're like reformed Christians.
Yeah. It's like, well, now they did all the like hedonistic things in the world.
Like Tucker Max, like the
Right.
frat writer who wrote like I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, who told stories about just like banging girls all the time. Now he's like, like an entrepreneur who
Right.
lives on like a farm post in Texas and talks about healthy eating and stuff.
It's very strange. Let's get into a book. The last book I read was, I want to get into this because a lot of people are talking shit about it. Because like some people, politically speaking anyway, like they hate the person so much, they don't even give them like a second. Like they won't even read their book or like, they won't listen to anything they have to say. They just like start talking shit immediately.
Like a Tucker Carlson or
or whatever. But Jake Tapper wrote this book called Original Sin about the Biden administration and the lies that they formulated to cover up his cognitive decline. And it's just funny how we were talking about this 2 years ago and like at the time it was insane, and now it's just people are writing.
We literally have clips of you from like 2023
from 2020,
or whatever.
literally 2022, talking about how this guy is obviously losing his cognitive ability.
Yeah, I remember you saying. I think he posted a clip where it's like Chuck Schumer being like, "He is the sharpest I've ever seen him." Like,
and I was like, "Is this guy not watching?" And it turns out, Kyle, that they all knew. So I want to say, because you sent me an article by Matt Taibbi, who I like, and he's great. But in the article, he tries to make it like Jake Tapper is, lying through his teeth about the situation and trying to make up things to make himself look good or whatever. Like, dude, that's not the book. Like, read the book. In the book, Jake Tapper admits that he knew what was going on. Everyone knew what was going on, and they just lied. Anyway, it's just, so the way he reports it now, Jake, I've heard him on interviews since the book's come out. He says that, I wish I reported more on this. I didn't deliberately lie. I just didn't want to spread rumors, right? But the thing is, there's video evidence of this stuff. Like, it's not a rumor.
He's like vehemently defending.
Right. And you were also mocking people for bringing it up. Like,
Right.
you were making it like they were insane for talking about this. And, he says, it was a failure of my journalistic vigor or something, or rigor. And I was like, dude, this has nothing to do with you being a journalist. This has to do with you being a liar.
So,
like,
do you know why he speaks in that language?
No.
I found this out. I forget what podcast I was listening to, or if it was Matt Taibbi, but he literally hired like the most famous PR crisis firm to launch this book. It's like they handled like some other famous politician scandal or something, like a famous one,
Right.
And he hired it, and it's like public information, like you can see that he hired this company. So like the reason when you hear his answers on interviews, like he never says like I'm sorry, he never says like I fucked up and I lied. He says like he says it in PR speak, and it's very obvious where he says like my actions were regrettable.
Right.
They were regrettable. And like, that's not an apology.
No, but the thing is, if you read the book, and I don't know how many people have, but it's like a New York Times bestseller. Apparently, a lot of people bought it. It is so obviously the case that he did know and did lie, knowingly, willingly. So like, it's because he talks about how, like, look, you're Jake Tapper. First of all, you're not like a journalist. You're the chief anchor of CNN Washington, D.C. Like, you're the journalist on politics, one of the journalists. Yeah. And so he had people, and this is all from the book I'm talking. He had people the entirety of the term, not just the last 6 months, not just after that horrible presidential debate when it all exploded and everyone saw how obvious it is that he's got problems, Biden, but the whole term, people were reaching out, Democratic aides, White House officials, lawmakers were reaching out like, dude, something's wrong with Joe Biden. Like, I'm telling you, the guy sees me every day and he doesn't know who I am.
What? Like, so what is Jake Tapper's like what's the value of him writing this book?
So that's what I'm saying.
He's just tarnishing his own reputation.
This is why it's interesting, because he's not the only one doing this. Chris Cuomo is doing a similar thing too. And who
are they trying to like rebrand themselves as like honest?
They're going on these like apology tours without apologizing, basically.
Yeah.
And like, who's the girl, Jean-Pierre Bennett, the White House press secretary during that time? Mm-hmm. She came out with a book as well, doing the same thing. Tapper's like, she's like, no, I was hearing things, but I didn't, And look, you can understand in this world of politics and people having jobs in corporate worlds and all that, they want to protect their company, they want to protect their name, they want to protect their job. But, look, man, when you're a journalist, you have an obligation to not lie. And not even just not lie, what he was doing falls into the realm of willful omission. It's a legal thing. Like, in court, he would lose his case. It's a form of dishonesty. Like, he knew what was going on and purposely just didn't talk about it, which is the same thing as lying.
No, because he didn't even he didn't just not talk about it. He vehemently defended anyone who said that. So it's different, because not talking about it is plausibly deniable, right? Because you can, and if he said that in his book, he said like, listen, I knew what was happening with Biden. I knew he was cognitively declined. I knew it, but with my job, like, it was in jeopardy. I wasn't allowed to say that.
He basically says that. But it's
different. Exactly. It's different to just not say it, or like try to, manipulatively never actually approach the topic, but to go after people and be like, that's ridiculous. Right. So he's never been sharper.
He willingly lied to millions of Americans on a daily basis. So like, I don't understand why these guys think that this is going to help them. Like Chris Cuomo's doing this too, like we talked about. I don't know what their goal is, but when you read it, it becomes so obvious that this is like undeniable.
This is just a theory. It could be off base entirely, but like, I think these guys like Cuomo and Jake Tapper are living in this world of pre like internet transparency. Yeah. That they think, oh, America loves a comeback story. So I'm going to eat crow.
Maybe.
I'm going to be served humble pie, admit, hey, I was wrong. I fucked up.
But they never apologize.
Like, please forgive me. And now I'm going to be an independent journalist with a podcast.
That's exactly what's going on.
I'm going to write a book, and you guys are going to trust me as a trusted voice in America, because that's who I've been for the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to rebrand, and I'm no longer going to be controlled by corporate media, because I realized that I was wrong in the past. Like, that is what they think. On. But our generation and younger who grew up in this is just like, no, we'll never trust you again. Right. Like, we're done with you.
Right. You have an obligation.
Like, every time I listen to Chris Cuomo, I'm like kind of rooting for him. I'm like, I kind of want him to have a comeback story.
Yes.
But every time he just puts his foot in his mouth and just sounds so corny and dishonest and like won't admit, won't say he's fucked up. And that's why like people are moving away from that. And they're like, we're not buying this bullshit anymore.
And the book wraps up with this like chilling account of, do you remember when George Clooney and Jimmy Kimmel and Barack Obama,
George Clooney was like, it was almost like George Clooney was like the reverse of when Tom Hanks got COVID. Where it was like, oh, if Tom Hanks got COVID, like this is serious. And it was like, well, if George Clooney is saying like so this is serious.
The guy was explaining who wrote the book with Tapper. I'm sorry, I can't believe I forgot the guy's name, but he's not famous like Tapper. But Clooney was like basically called like by Barack about like, dude, you've got to help. Like, we got to get you in there. And I think Clooney like gave like millions of dollars, so he's a big donor. But they had this fundraiser in Los Angeles, right? And Clooney was there, and all these people were there. Big fundraiser, big money, a lot of names. And according to this guy who wrote the book with Tapper, George showed up, and Joe didn't say hello to him. And George was like, "Hey, Joe, hey, it's me." And Joe didn't know who he was. He didn't know,
wow.
That's George Clooney. And so anyway, they go on the stage and they're doing this Q&A kind of thing.
Which there's a chance he doesn't know who George Clooney is, but I'm sure they've met before.
Yes.
Right?
No,
yeah.
he's a huge donor of the party.
Okay, yeah.
He should know.
It'd be one thing if it was their first time meeting. He's
I've
never seen Ocean's 11. I don't know.
And Clooney's talked about it in an op-ed where he was like, I was shocked when I got there.
Wow.
Seeing how
I remember that.
Seeing what he's like now. I hadn't seen him in a while. He's there's definitely something wrong with this guy. So they go on stage and they do this Q&A, and it goes horribly as usual with Joe. And they're leaving, right? And when they're leaving, this was a viral clip. Trump posted it, everything. When they're leaving, Joe freezes on stage for a solid 10 seconds, and he's not moving. And Barack has to take him by the arm and all right, come on, we're leaving now, we're leaving. And they get off stage, and everybody was kind of like, what the fuck was that? It was one of those frozen moments. And it went viral because it was so obvious that this guy just has dementia basically. And CNN said that video that went viral, which is the real video, is a cheap fake.
Oh yeah.
You remember this?
The cheap fake.
The cheap fake thing.
Yep.
And they were it's taken out of context. They're slowing down the amount of time that it was. It was really 3 seconds, and he was just looking at something that was happening in the crowd. Again, gaslighting the American people into what are you? That's ridiculous. What do you think? You trust Fox News, whatever it is? So that happened, and Jake tells in the book that, dude, what world are we living in where? Okay, so the American people know something's wrong. Okay, the established mainstream media knows that something's wrong, but then the government takes hold of a video that went viral showcasing the issue and then made it seem like you're crazy for believing your own eyes. Yeah. And then they made a video. This is true because I looked CNN, I saw the video. They made a version of the video with editing where they speed up that amount of time to make it seem like it's not that bad. So they doctored the video to fool everybody. So the word Orwellian gets thrown around a lot, but this is worse than that because, and then the government uses the false video and says it's the real video to tell the American people that they're wrong, to gaslight them with a lie.
That's insane.
I mean, Kyle, what is this?
That's
what
wild.
World are we living in? It's worse than a Huxleyan nightmare.
Yeah, this is where I get really anxious when I start to realize that you have everyone in media basically is twisting the narrative into how they want it to be conceived. Mm-hmm. And if you have enough power and money behind that, you can effectively do it. Maybe not to all 330 Americans, but you can do it to the 70% who's just glancing at a headline. Right. And oh yeah, it was a cheap fake.
But
and
the government doctored and edited a video that was real and said that the video that they're showing you is the reality of it. That is worse than 1984. They used to make up. Well, it's actually kind of the same thing. In 1980, well, they would make up words, right? They would make up words for I forgot what they were, but to talk about somebody who's pretty, you can't call people beautiful anymore. You'd call them something. It
was
else.
Unspeak or something.
Yeah,
I forget what it was.
Yeah, whatever. And
not speak. I don't remember.
They invented the word malinformation, right? Not misinformation, but malinformation, meaning that it's true, but it's not serving the purpose of the government, so you can't say it. So that's this they just invented cheap fake. It's not real. It's true what happened, but it wasn't like that.
But you notice you haven't seen the term cheap fake since that. It was a flash in the pan. Mm-hmm. They used it for 3 months, and then they're like, shit, it's not working. Yeah. All right, let's scrap the cheap fake.
And again, Tapper was somebody who defended this, and he's talking about it and just basically blatantly saying that it was all bullshit. And it's man, I think everybody should read that book because it's really an eye-opener into where American politics is at right now.
But again, if I read that book, I no longer trust Jake Tapper as it is. So I'm going to this book being
after.
Can I even believe 100% of these words in the book?
I don't know.
Because how much is he still
because what he's saying
manipulating?
is what we all saw in the first place. Like he brings up when he fell off the bike or whatever, and he fell off when Joe Biden did that. Like he brings up all of the things that happened, and he talks about what CNN purported that to happen, and he talks about what he heard happened, which is always what you and I knew the whole time, right? And it's just amazing that, you know, I just still don't know what these guys are doing. They don't know how to navigate in a world where everyone has phones in their pocket, where you can't lie to the average American.
We've talked about this so many times.
Exactly,
too.
and that's why it's an interesting thing, because it's a novel cultural issue. This is a new problem, and I don't know. The only way to get around it is to be gut-wrenchingly honest all the time. Is to just never get caught in a lie, because once you do, it's over.
Yeah, I saw Mark Andreessen actually talking about this issue on a podcast.
I love that guy.
About
I wish I was that
he's
smart.
tough to listen to though. Just like this.
I'm like, am I listening on two
stutter
two times?
and like
Yeah.
And but he was talking about like how do you validate, because AI is already so good where it can basically produce a clip of this show.
It can produce a deep fake.
A deep fake of this show, and you'd have no idea if it was real or not.
Literally.
And he was saying, like, how do you validate that in this world where, like, videos can just pop up all the time and you have no idea what's real or not? And he was explaining how, like, the blockchain, basically, of, like, that backs Bitcoin and all of that, it would have to be the similar thing of, like, the video would have to be posted on the blockchain, and it would have to be validated by multiple people of who was the owner of that.
Right.
And then it would have to also be validated against other angles of that same video to be verified, basically, before it's actually published onto the internet.
So it would be like the technology for the original, smoking monkey or whatever that was. Remember the NFTs?
Yes.
So that's how you would validate the video. Yeah.
Which blockchain is like, I know it sounds again like a buzzy crypto term that everyone's like, yeah, that'll never fucking work.
It works.
But no,
but it does
blockchain
work.
is like legitimate technology.
Legitimate.
So that could be the future. NFTs, whatever it was called, but I don't understand it.
But that's how you authenticate anything digital. Yes.
I don't understand how it works, but I guess that would be the way to do it. But
I just don't know what's going to happen, because I don't think that Orwell or Huxley or any of these dystopian authors, like they didn't really see this coming.
As you were saying, and I was trying to think, has there been a bigger case of that historically or even recently where the public was so blatantly told?
Well, he does bring up historical. For context, just like JFK had an illness as well. He had some,
or FDR.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they look in the political world, they try to cover up things. It is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like the government was just operating like he was FDR and no one would notice.
Right.
Like,
right.
Well, if we just hide his legs behind a podium, like no one will notice. Like,
and so JFK had some issue, autoimmune disorder. I forgot what it was called, but they tried to hide that from the public for a while. But again, like that's not really the same thing. This isn't a cognitive issue. This isn't like your ability to make decisions and your ability to stay awake.
Didn't Reagan? I think Reagan had, or was it?
I think Reagan had some heart attacks that they covered up or something.
I feel like there was one other president. Not Carter. Shit. The people listening or the people older.
People yell at us a lot.
But there was one president, I believe, who in the last maybe few months had like dementia.
It was probably Carter,
but was like open about it. I believe. I don't remember.
But again, it's like you can. But this is why this guy believe in the Zohan or whatever is like running for mayor now, which is fine. I don't really. I mean, it's not fine. But like people are so fed up with the establishment that they'll literally vote for a socialist to like run New York City, which is ridiculous.
We've also talked about that, like the rebound that's always way stronger than the initial response to something. So he's kind of like the anti-Trump, right? In a sense, exactly. He's the same thing as Trump, just on the opposite side,
right? Basically.
So like, I'm not shocked by it. I am, like, because it is pretty surprising and jarring how quickly it happened. Mm-hmm. I thought it might take a few more years for
that to kind of
to really come out.
And the people that I follow who are like, I know, who are like radically on the left, like they're so happy.
Yeah,
dude, I've seen.
I didn't, dude. I literally, because I was on vacation and stuff, like I didn't know anything about this guy until maybe 6 days ago. Yeah. And so I've been reading up on it, and it's pretty wild. Where I'm just like, wow, people are really.
No, people.
He's like an Obama figure, where like he's a well-spoken, handsome, young guy with like, he's on social media. He's like savvy. He's really charismatic, and just listening to him talk. If you didn't know his politics, just listening to him talk, you're like, wow, this guy sounds interesting. Like,
why
he knows
not?
what he's talking about.
I mean, like, I don't know, man. I don't know how many times we have to go through a socialist, situation for people to realize it doesn't usually work out the way they say it will. But like, because no one reads history.
I heard, I don't know enough about him to really like talk shit or even know his policies. But I heard Andrew Schultz talk about it because they had Eric Adams on their podcast, and they want to get him on the podcast as well because they're the biggest podcast in New York City. And Andrew Schultz was just like, well, you know what? It's like he's the rich kid, and he's got money to spend. He's gonna drive a Ferrari. He's probably gonna crash it. Yep. He's gonna be going 90 miles an hour and crash it. But hey, it's gonna be fun for a little bit.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. He comes from a rich family. I don't understand how people who come from money can hate capitalism. I just don't get how that's possible. Like I mean, maybe you're just so in the water that you don't realize that you're a fish or something. Like I don't get. Like you're like, how could you? It's the same people, They hate whatever. Like borders are made up, right? But
you know what? I think a lot.
They want to give the land back to the people who were here originally. What do you? I
think if I were to like pathologize it into a very simple, oversimplified explanation, why I think you're seeing a rise in it right now, I think it's just like. I see in our generation, and I definitely have a little bit of this as well, or had a little bit of it. In our generation, there is this mentality of, I won't accept anything that I don't deserve, kind of. Where it's like we feel like we should be deserving of all of the great things that America has always historically offered all of the generations prior, right? So like affordable housing and like, a stable middle class and like the ability to afford, a 1-bedroom apartment with your friend in the big city and stuff. And like all of those things, they're attainable, but they're like very difficult kind of. You have to be in a certain tax bracket. Yes. And I think for like the 25 to 35-year-old range, it's just this frustration of like, I deserve it. Everyone else before me at this age had
the average
all
home buyer is
37
now in New York.
Yeah, and like I get it. Like for our generation, it is tougher to do all those things. So like
sure.
I get the frustration. So
you can't just chop off. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That expression. You can't just chop off the legs of the thing and go, let's just start from scratch and everyone gets everything for free. It's like what are you, fucking stupid?
I've
That's
always,
not the way it works.
I've always thought about like the generation that you grow up in. It's just like the like hand of cards that you're dealt, right? And I compare it to like being born into a particular fan base of a sports team.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky, like me,
Yankees.
I was born in the 90s with the Yankees, and I got to see 4 championships before I was like 10 years old, which was like insane. But sometimes you get shitty luck, right? And you're born into a Jets family, and that's you got to deal with that. That's just the card. That's the hand you were dealt, right? Yeah. Your parents were fans, your grandparents were fans, and now you have to be that fan. And sometimes I feel like that's similar to like growing up in a generation. It's like if you were born, in 1955, and you were white, you got a great hand, right?
Right.
But if you were born in 1995 and you're white, I mean, yes, you still have a great hand subjectively or objectively, but comparatively to the other generation, it's kind of like having a team that just isn't making the playoffs every year. Right. And you just got to ride it out.
Right.
You just got to keep coming back and being like,
you can't just,
fuck, man, we haven't made the playoffs in 17 years. Right. Like when we got to change management here, the management is just fucking, we get new managers, but every time it's the same fucking result. He's like, we need to get a playoff contender. We need a manager in here to fuck shit up and like start the whole thing from scratch. And I feel like that's how people think about it.
That's very true.
And I'm just like, nah, man, like sometimes you got to just stay hopeful. And like, yes, it is shitty. And like capitalism can sometimes to a lot of people feel like the shittiest hand of cards you ever got dealt. And you're like, why is it like this? We look at other countries who are socialist and we're like, they can do it. Like we can do it, We're like, they're the scrappy team.
Right.
They moneyballed their way to success. He's like, and we're the Yankees with all the budget. We should be going to the World Series every year.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, in a way, you would think that, like, I know socialism and communism's never worked, but you'd think at this point we've got so much money that, like, can we make it work? We've got so much money.
I know we've read so much about communism and socialism,
and we still think maybe
and even I am just like, you know what? Never say never.
Yeah, like I know
I'm rooting for it to a degree. I'm just like, I do want to see it work somewhere.
Right. Like
It's like a cult. You know, every cult starts out where it's like everyone's doing yoga and eating healthy and have farm to table and like you're walking barefoot. I'm like, that sounds beautiful. You're getting off the grid, right? No more electronics, no more news, no more bullshit, corporate stuff, no more houses. It's like, let's just live as a tribal community. And I'm like, that sounds beautiful. And then it always ends up
there's a great meme, and it's
crazy guy.
It's because of it's because of the human condition. That's really what it comes down to. There's a great meme of like this guy. It's I don't know. It's a template of a meme, but it's a cartoon character like waking up and going like, oh shit, and it's like Karl Marx when he forgot to take human behavior into consideration or something, and it's like you right. Wouldn't that be great in a perfect world, right? Where like, well, even Rogan was talking about this with Bernie recently, where he was like, you know, if everyone just had general income like every year, it was like the same for everybody, but like, because then everybody would be free to like pursue their passions or whatever. But it's like not everybody has that. Dude, not everybody wants to do something.
I actually heard one of my favorite. It was a really good take from a guy who I kind of have lost trust for, but Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Had a very good take that I haven't heard this angle.
I haven't heard him on this.
So he talked about Waymo, like the driverless cars, the taxis, and he was saying he's like Waymo is a fantastic idea on paper. He goes because you know it reduces the need for people to drive, and we can be more productive and sit in the back seat and do things. And the Waymo is the safest thing that can get us from point A to point B, and we can reduce the footprint and whatever. He goes, but I ran an experiment. He goes, I think he was in Scottsdale or something. He goes, and I was running and I purposely kept kind of running close to the Waymo car just to see how it would react. And sure enough, it would either swerve or a little bit. He's like, and my friend was in the back seat, so like I wasn't fucking with like a stranger. And he's like, so I started running circles around the Waymo and it just stopped until it assumed, all right, this pedestrian is eventually going to get out of the way and I can move, but it just stalled there. He goes, and I kept running circles and then I would move away and it would go again. He goes, and what I realized was, this will never work in cities, ever, because human behavior. Pedestrians in New York City, the pedestrian has the right of way, and they say fuck you to every car that comes through. And cars stop because they don't want to hit people. But he goes, the threat, if a car is driving fast enough, that pedestrian who stepped off the curb will be like, oh shit, I'm not going to go.
Right.
And it's because there's the implication that it's a human behind the wheel and they might fuck up and hit people. Whereas a Waymo is always going to stop. It's the safest, it's never going to make a mistake, which is actually the problem. Because if it's never going to make a mistake, then in New York City, it's never going to be aggressive enough.
Right. And talk about a backstreet driver. You're going to be in the backseat going, fucking go. Just go. They're going to stop.
Yeah. And I was like, he's so right. And he's like, Waymos will never work in cities.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, I never even.
That's a great point. That's very true. Yeah. A lot of
But that's like, it's the same thing where it's like, oh, human behavior.
Right.
I forgot
humans.
Yeah.
And the way we act.
It's like winning the lottery. It's like, wouldn't it be great to win the lottery?
Yeah.
And it's like every single person like ruins their life in 3 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The real world is pretty fucked up right now. And I know you want to talk about fiction, so let's get to it.
Yeah. I've made it a bit more of an intention to try to read more fiction. Cause I'm more of a nonfiction guy. But I found myself just struggling in times with like, connecting to humans, especially about like emotional stuff, like deep emotional stuff. Not, I can be comfortable in a vulnerable conversation, but when it gets to like very deep emotions, whether it's like depression or grief with friends, not like myself, I had a very tough time feeling like a supportive, like I could understand them and stuff like that.
Holding the space, as they put it.
As exactly. And going, no, but
I think it's a guy thing. I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, and I also think it's a guy thing to always be very solutions oriented, right? So like when someone is airing stuff to you, I automatically think of all the nonfiction, self-help, psychology books, and I'm just like, well, if you just change the way you're thinking, and right, and like no one wants to hear that. So I've made it a point to read more fiction, and also because when I was younger, I felt like my imagination was way more creative because I gave myself room to operate in these spaces.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is true. Like you used to be super creative.
Like
when we were kids, constantly drawing,
always
drawing, always music and writing, and you were much different back then. Yeah,
and I think back then it was because before phones, I literally would just sit. I remember I would sit in my living room and just stare out the window. And legitimately, just my imagination would create a world. And I would create scenes and characters and dialogue and all this. And I'd just sit there. And I feel like I jam your AirPods into my ears and just like listen to podcasts, listen to self-help, read stuff. And I'm like always like optimizing and thinking very like logically. And I'm like, I need to get back into the fucking fiction world, man. Like I need to get back into that creative zone of just like walking, like mindless stuff. And then also just putting myself into another author's world and just like being captivated by it. So I've read 3 fiction books in a row. I have a few more lined up, and it's definitely made me way more calm. And also just like, I don't cry a lot, but definitely like feel the emotion of just like, oh, like a gut punch from like a line you read in a book, or like a character says something about love or about like loss. And you're just like, oh, I need a little bit more of that.
Don't you find too that fiction is so for you? Like it's so like for you in that, you know, when you absorb it, like you said, like it just kind of wakes up things in you that don't get woken up anymore because you're not going through what this person's going through. You're not dealing with whatever this person's dealing with. So but you're feeling for them because you're reading.
You're in their mind.
You're in their head, and so like you just become more emotional in general, and you're more open now to emotion and receiving it and putting it out there in the world. I think it's purely more for you. I think fiction can be more for you than like a self-help book, you know,
100%, yeah.
Because like it's more about like just getting your mind to kind of empathize. And I'm taking this from what you sent me, that video of that woman explaining how fiction can help people become more empathetic. But like it's so true. It makes you consider somebody else's thoughts and somebody else's feelings, and you're doing it alone and in silence and in your head. So like it really is personal. It's not like you saw it and like, oh, can you imagine? Like it's really personal, and like you're creating the world in your own mind as well. So fiction is like, in my opinion, more important for a person and their well-being as far as like psychological, mental well-being than like a self-help, like, hey, get up earlier kind of book.
Yeah. And I think like I don't regret reading all of that type of nonfiction self-help books because I learned so much.
They all have their place.
But yeah, I think I've reached like kind of a tipping point of like, all right, I think I've read the top, 80% of books in that nonfiction world where I've learned all the basics of like human behavior and like psychology and logical thinking and the right brain, left brain and all that sort of stuff, where I'm just like, there's really nothing else left for me to read that isn't going to be some regurgitation of something I've already read.
Yeah.
But fiction, and it's different from movies, right? Because someone could argue like, well, you get the same feeling from watching a movie, which you can for sure. Like I've cried to plenty of movies as well, like Interstellar, right? Like that's one where it's like that gut punch, right? Mm-hmm. But a book is different because, like you said, you are living in that character's. You almost take on that character's brain, like you become them, especially if it's like a first-person book.
Super personal.
But it's also because a book takes time, and like you might read it for like 3 months, so like you're really like absorbing it and like you're feeling it. Whereas a movie, 3 hours, yes, it can last with you, but a book, like
there's a meme going around right now called the theme of it is just like I almost forgot that this is the whole point.
Yeah,
and like that's a fiction novel. Like it's not.
That's exactly the feeling.
It's like, dude, just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the ride. Don't worry about if it's good or not. If the ending sucks, it's just like get into it. Give yourself that. Allow yourself to do that. It's like listening to a new album or something. Like I never understand when people say I don't listen to music, or like I don't get music like that. Like I really love music, and people will say to me like I don't like music the way you like it. It's totally different for me, dude. If you allowed yourself to listen to an album that like Tool or Pink Floyd or something like that, you'd be brought to tears. But people just don't feel comfortable doing that because all of the great arts are kind of like disappearing from our culture, like just good literature and poetry and all that stuff. Dude, I have you ever read like poetry? It's like, you'll just cry. Yeah. You'll just start crying.
Dude, me and Lauren went to, so we were just in Saratoga this weekend. We went to this coffee shop, which if anyone's ever in Saratoga, Walt, I believe is the name of the coffee shop after Walt Whitman. Really cool, like typical, rural small city where it's like half, barista coffee shop, half brewery, and like huge open space. But
you're born here.
Yeah, but all over the born in Huntington, Walt Whitman. But all over the bookstore or the coffee shop, they had really cool, and I posted these on my Instagram story, but they had a really good book collection. But then all over the walls, they had famous quotes, poems, like lines from books and everything. And me and Lauren literally walked around and like started crying like multiple times to just like.
And people will say like,
did you see you liked it? I think it was a David Foster Wallace quote.
Oh,
right,
Kyle.
dude. I was not expecting it.
It's just so real.
You know when like you're just going up to like a wall and you're just like, oh, this is nice. And, like I go up to that and I literally just like
anything I've ever let go of had claw marks in it.
And I was just like, oh my. And I literally,
yeah.
I go because Lauren's watching our baby at the table, so I'm by myself, and I go to Lauren. I'm like, Lauren, go over on that wall and start reading some quotes. And just like, just be warned.
Yeah,
that's all I said.
Yeah, no, they when people know how to write, you know, it's amazing. I mean, like even a Shakespearean sonnet or something. Like it's just, you know, like have you ever memorized a song? I've done it.
Yeah. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more literate, or more temperate.
Right. Where's the one? I'll try it right now. I swear I haven't done it in a while. But that's the thing about memorizing sonnets. Like you can walk around. This is what I do with the movie quotes. Like I was just doing the one from Independence Day for the 4th of July. Like I was just like saying that speech before he goes, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight." Dude, you get like, it's fun. Like you feel the feelings. The sonnet, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. And trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, I look upon myself and curse my fate. Thinking me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. But in these thoughts myself almost despising, happily I think on thee. And then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. I mean,
damn.
He just absolutely nailed.
You also, the delivery on that was...
Yeah, well,
that was Shakespearean. That was theater right there.
Yeah, I gave myself...
I don't know.
chills.
I didn't know half of what you said, but
right.
Most of it sounded beautiful.
Right. And it's when someone... Like, people forget that there's a way to talk and a way to write that's like the right way. And like Shakespeare did that. And when you do that, people start crying. Because like it's just... You perfectly represent an ineffable thing with words nonetheless. It's like an impossible thing, but you did it anyway.
There's also like, I like when you read a poem, sometimes you realize that the poem has a very famous quote that you've maybe heard a million times, but then you've never seen the actual, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this was from a larger poem. Right. Like what's the line? It's like people won't remember how you made them. Oh, people won't remember what you said or what you did, but people always remember how you made them feel. Right, exactly. And that's what's her name? Maya Angelou. And like it's a much larger poem, but that's the last line, so everyone remembers that. Right. But the bigger poem is like, it's a beautiful like just sort of summary of like what matters in life, and it's just like,
I want to get this one down that Michael Caine read recently on this Poet Society thing about being a man, and it's from a man to his son. Kyle, I'll send it to you. Yeah. It really makes you go, oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm reading right now Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. So he wrote Beartown, which was like really cool, but also like emotional book. It was like based in Sweden. It was like a high school hockey team, but it was like very emotional. It's kind of like Friday Night Lights, but like, you know, it was awesome book. So I'd always wanted to read another Frederick Bachman book after that. And Anxious People, I've seen it on like all the top bestsellers list, and you see the cover and you'd think off the title that it was like based on, you know, two hopeless lovers who are like neurotic, right? And it's like the cover is like a man and a woman. It's Anxious People, right? But the book was like so unique and like nothing I've ever read. It's like hard to give it a genre because it's like a heist gone wrong. So it's like a comedy, it's like a drama, it's a love story, it's like a murder mystery, like all wrapped into one. And the beautiful part of it is it's a comedy. It's like a comedy play almost. But within it, there's lines. I haven't highlighted it, but there's lines in it where I've taken a picture and like sent it to my wife, because there's like 3 lines in that book that are just dialogue between 2 characters or 2 strangers that have more wisdom than like any self-help book. It's amazing. Like I'm just like, fuck. Like they're talking about like, you know, how like they lost their husband or something, and they say something about like, well, how did it last in the marriage? And it's just like, well, sometimes you live with them, and sometimes you fall out of love with them, but you can never not live with them. And it's just like these lines. I'm messing up the quote.
I know what
you're
saying.
They just boil it down to one line. I'm just like, yep.
Well, that's what happened with me. Like I suggest that listeners, if you haven't, listen to the first few episodes, because in those days I was reading a lot of Russian novels, like fake fiction, and I remember stating a lot of lines from those books, like the way that the Russians just come up with these sentences. I guess it's also the translation to English, like the way Russians speak. I have the luxury of knowing a Russian woman, and I see her often, and she's given me a lot of great books by Dostoevsky and Bulgakov, and she's helped explain to me why Russian is such an emotional language. I mean, their history is filled with death and all this stuff and Christianity, but the book, like The Master and Margarita that I've talked about, there are lines in that book when he goes back to the trial of Jesus Christ, and he creates this dialogue between Jesus and the judge, and the things that get said in those pages, like from Jesus's mouth, it's just like, I don't understand how people can come up with these things, especially 150 years ago or whatever it was. I mean, like, obviously it's actually probably easier back then because it was more of an art form than it is today, writing, but like, yeah, you're really missing out on some things that will literally change your life. Like, literally.
Yeah. Well, it's just a fact that humans always respond to stories over facts and data.
Yeah.
Like you'll respond, the classic example is, 50,000 people dead in the Middle East today. You don't respond to that. That's a fact. It's
right.
It's a statistic. But one, childless mother was killed today.
Right.
Now you're leaning in. You're like, what's the story here?
Right.
And like that's the stuff that like impacts
you hear there's a genocide going on and you're like, oh, that's horrible. But you hear that a woman held her headless child's body.
I also said childless mother.
Yeah, I know.
I meant motherless child.
I'll cut that out. No, but you hear that a woman was found holding her headless child on her knees crying. It just hits.
Well, it's like those 50, like Pulitzer Prize winning photos, right?
Right.
Where like it's like some atrocity in like China, and like the picture says 1,000 words. Or it's just like that picture hits you. You understand it all.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
By the way, one of the first books I ever talked about on the show was called Project Hail Mary, and the movie's coming out.
Ryan Gosling.
I don't know if you saw the preview, but it looks fucking fantastic. I mean, I was a little worried that they were going to make the alien seem a little goofy, but I think they did a good job. And, like, it's funny, like in the movie, they show the preview, they show like this part where you see something. And in the book, when you hear that this guy saw this thing, dude, I remember my heart sank, like way more than it would have if I saw it in a movie, I think. It's just something different when it's in your own head. It's because it's perfect, because you're creating it. It's exactly how you want it to be.
I know. I always compare that to Harry Potter. Like the first time you read Harry Potter, and like,
yeah, what was that like seeing Hogwarts on screen for the first? Did they nail it or did they not?
So I actually regret at that time I wasn't a huge Harry Potter fan. I was like anti-establishment, and I was like, fucking trying to be contradict like everything, and I was just like, nah, Harry Potter sucks. And then when I eventually read it, I was just like, creativity and like the world just pours out of your head.
I remember you recommending it to me.
And it's like it's one of the most fantastic books that just forces you into another world, and you create it, kind of like J.K. Rowling is authoring it, but you're envisioning this entire cast of characters, what they look like, what they sound like in your head.
Yeah.
And then when you see it in a movie, it's great because it gives you a little bit of context of like what the author actually meant, which is nice, but it kind of squashes how you saw Hermione or how you like heard Ron Weasley talking, or like what you thought this character might look like in this setting and like all that. And it kind of, dampens that, which is a little annoying. So I usually don't like to see movie adaptations of like my favorite novels are like the Reacher novels. And like I remember when the Tom Cruise one came out, I was like,
you were like, nope,
no fucking shot. No shot. But then when the show came out,
that guy's Jack Reacher.
And the guy, I was like, that is exactly what I picture him looking like. And the first season was like, this is exactly what I picture the entire novel to look like, and they nailed it. And I was like, wow, it's rare you see that. Like almost perfectly adapted onto a show. The second season sucked, but But yeah, I mean, books are just like this. It's why I'll just never stop harping on how important I think books are.
Put it this way. Jordan Peterson says that stories are really more true than facts in a way. They're meta true. They're beyond true. They're historically, biologically written in our DNA and genetics to tell these stories. Folklore, Snow White, all of these things. These stories that everyone knows without even having to read it. They're in you. They're from the beginning of time.
To go back to our boy Jeff Bezos, he has a great quote about this. Where Amazon is obviously a company who runs really hyper efficiently on back end logistics and data and stuff like that. That's how they operate most of their company. But at the same time, Jeff Bezos says, if a factory worker, like a high management factory worker, comes to me and tells me an anecdote about what's going wrong at the factory, whenever we do our research and try to back it up with the data, and the data doesn't show what he's saying is true, he's like, the anecdote is almost always correct. He's like, the data may not show it, but if he feels strongly enough about it to bring it up to Jeff Bezos, it's probably correct.
It's got to be going on.
Yeah. It's just it's not coming up in the numbers. So it's like the stories that people are telling about, like, dude, I'm telling you, even though numbers are lying, like, shit's fucked up. He's like, that's almost 100% correct versus the numbers.
It almost comes full circle. Like Jake Tapper, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with Joe Biden.
Yeah, believe the stories. Well, I don't know what fucking facts or statistics they could have proven about Joe Biden.
His doctor said he's totally fine, but that was all obviously bullshit.
Yeah, I need to. I'm going to go to sleep tonight thinking about what is another example of where the public was just so obviously gaslighted, where we were just like, what? Like,
this is what I mean, man.
When else in history has almost the entire public of the U.S. just been like, yeah, no, dude, that's not.
We're looking right at it.
We know you're lying. Yeah. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, even the Orwellian, like,
probably never. Honestly,
they didn't tell people, like, you didn't see that. Like, they
just told them.
They told you, like, these are the new rules. This is the new truth, and, like, you have to subscribe to this. But they didn't pretend. They didn't have the gall to just, like, tell you that you didn't see what just happened. Like, that's not. You can't expect people to buy that. We saw it. I saw it, bro. I said it the second that guy.
Yeah, you said it.
Swore it in.
Yeah,
I was like, bro, that guy.
But the funny thing is, it's not even like impressive for anyone to be like, no, I've been saying it since 2020. Because like, no, most people I know have been saying it since 2020.
Like, yeah. I'm not a doctor. I just saw what.
And then you hear like the media people and they're like, yeah, I knew since 2023. And I'm like, that was late.
Yeah, bro, you were late to the party. You were completely delusional.
Well, it's wild. And maybe we'll end on this. I don't know if you have anything else to talk about, but I heard Tucker Carlson talking about his time at like Fox News, and he kind of just casually mentioned it. I think they were actually talking about the Jake Tapper book, and he was being open and honest, where he said, because, the Fox News crew, we are all assumed to be on the same party line about conservatism. And then you go and have beers at the bar after the show, and you realize, oh, most of these people aren't conservative at all.
Either they're actors.
Yeah, they're middle of the road. Some of them are even left leaning, but they're kind of just they're taking their paycheck, and it's diffusion of responsibility, and they're like, this job's good enough. It's paying me. I'm not egregiously lying to people. I'm just kind of pretending to be a little bit of something I'm not.
All right. Let's wrap it up, Kyle.
Well,
what do you think?
Yeah, I think that was good.
4th of July.
Good talk. Yeah, happy Independence Day, everyone.
Yeah, I don't know when this will be out. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the 4th of July.
Perfect.
But we'll see.
Drink beers, eat hot dogs.
Absolutely.
Do it the American way.
Yeah.
Put a flag on your front lawn.
Look, things are fucked up, but we're still the best. See you guys next time.
Happy 4th. Thanks, guys.
Happy 4th.